Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, my entitled neighbor pulled a gun on me after claiming that I am an intruder on my own property. She insists that someone like me cannot own a house and pool like this, and that's why she will call the cops on me. Later on, she even tried to confiscate my property and made my life hell. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. Before I get started, I want to make a plea to everybody out there watching. Get security cameras for your home. Even if you think that you're in a good neighborhood and don't need them, you really never know. I did not think anything was gonna happen to me, but you will see by the end of this story how happy I was that I had them. Anyway, on to my story. So I am black and I moved into a neighborhood that is upscale and pretty mixed. My wife is a lawyer and I work real estate, so we have made a comfortable life for ourselves because of it. Being in real estate has an advantage when looking for a new home because I can sometimes find a really good house for sale before other people are jumping on it. And that was how we got our house, and it had everything the two of us were looking for. It had a nice pool and a decent sized garden where we could plant flowers and have the family over. The one problem that I did not know was our neighbor was a total racist and did not think that two black people could live in such a nice house. Even before she did or said anything, I could tell that she had a problem with the way we looked. I cannot really put it into words, but anybody that has been discriminated against knows that look you get from people, the one that they think you are disgusting or up to no good just for existing. And well, the issue came one day when I was just swimming in my pool, and before I knew it, there were no less than 3 police cars in the street. Then they came into my backyard with guns drawn. You can imagine that I thought I was gonna be randomly killed on the spot, but luckily that did not happen. Officer, get out of the pool now. Me, what's going on, officer? Officer, we got a call that you are trespassing on this property and might be armed and dangerous. Me, I own this house. If we go inside, I can show you the paperwork that proves it. As you can see, I'm wearing swim trunks and I don't have any kind of weapon on me. I'm not making any sudden moves and going to keep my hands where you can see them. If you don't know why I was being overcautious and announcing all of these things, it's because I wanted to make sure I was not gonna be shot and end up on the news. The police let me show them that I owned the house and they were quick to calm down and put their weapons away. It was when they were leaving that I saw my neighbor running out of the house and yelling that they had to arrest me. Neighbor, wait a minute. You have to arrest that man. He is trespassing and was swimming in that pool illegally. Officer, ma'am, he owns the house. Please return to your property. Neighbor, he cannot own a nice house like that. Just look at him. It was clear she was racist and called the police on me for being black. They told her again that I owned the house and to go back to hers. She listened and I was hoping that maybe things could settle down. I knew she was always gonna be a racist, but perhaps she would be a quiet one and just hate me from a distance. It did not take long though for something else to happen with her. I was having my family over for a Sunday brunch and we were in the garden just talking. It was not a crazy party, just some food and light conversation. That was when I saw my neighbor actually jump the fence and point a gun in my face. I instantly froze, once again fearing I would be shot. Neighbor, I called the police again for you making all of this noise. This used to be a nice neighborhood, but when you came in here and tried to turn it into some kind of slum, I don't know what you told them last time, but I know that you don't actually own this property. Me, I don't know what you want to hear, but we bought this house. Neighbor, BS, I know you're kind. I am hereby confiscating this property for the town, and once the police come, they are gonna arrest you and finally take you away back where you really belong. I hope you had fun pretending to be high class, because now you're gonna end up in a jail cell or worse. Since she had a gun, everybody listened and we filed out of my garden and into the street until the police came. Once they came to me and listened to what I had to say, while another one listened to some fake story that my neighbor made up. She claimed she saw us breaking into the house and even went onto her property with weapons trying to rob her. She put on a really good show, I gotta say, but I had one trick up my sleeve that she wasn't counting on. I had installed security cameras for my home and everything she just did was caught on tape. I showed the police how we were just having lunch in the garden when she came in gun first. I also explained how she called the police before about me and I proved once that I owned the property. They were done with her crap and lying and asked if I want to press charges against her. While I live in an area where you are allowed to stand your ground with a weapon, you cannot just go around pointing it at people for no reason. What she did was classified as harassment and a hate crime. I pressed charges and the next thing I knew, I saw my neighbor being handcuffed and put into the back of the police car. Officer, I'm sorry for all the trouble. You folks please enjoy the rest of your day, and she won't be bothering you anymore. If you have any issues, feel free to call. They then left, and my neighbor was now in a ton of trouble with the police. They were less concerned about what she did and more with the fact that the gun she had was not legally registered to her. She had no license and no way to explain how she obtained the gun in any kind of legal way. She gave some crap about the right to owning a gun and needing it because dangerous criminals moved in next door. She was given community service and told that if she had a problem with the neighbors, they recommend she move because the next time she pulled a stunt like this again, it was gonna be worse for her. A fine and community service was one thing, but anything else she did was gonna result in her going to jail. She took that advice because a few months later I heard through work her house was gonna go up for sale. I was glad that she was gone and was very soon replaced with much better neighbors. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't have the cameras, but I'm just really glad I did. My last comment for this story is a simple one: F racist people. And by the way, Ripestars, I have asked the author of this story, which was by the way a pretty long process because this is a mega old story, where this story actually took place, and he wasn't comfortable exactly sharing the country, but he said it did not take place in the United States but instead in Europe. I'm not sure where exactly because usually gun laws are super strict in Europe, but no idea. The next one is titled Neighbors Use My Driveway and Sometimes My Parking Spot. So I am a first-time homeowner and I just closed last week. This week I've noticed that the neighbors use my driveway to reach their garage and have started parking partially behind my house. Supposedly there was some handshake agreement about using the driveway only with the previous homeowners, but no easement. They have not introduced themselves and they don't answer the door when I've gone over to introduce myself. The survey shows that the driveway is 100% mine. So how do I cut off their usage of my land without a huge issue? I don't want to give them any opportunity to block me, but I also don't want to maroon their cars back there. I obviously don't want to make a bad relationship right away either, but they seem to care less about that. So I'm thinking of just taking out the part on my side that connects to theirs when no cars are behind the house and calling it good. Any thoughts on this? Update to the story. So the update, as promised, prior to doing this I discussed adverse possession laws with an attorney. In my state, use has to be exclusive, so I'm in the clear. To start, I tried to talk with the neighbors one more time, and they did not answer, so I left them a handwritten note saying that the driveway would be inaccessible. I'm in the middle of doing some renovations to the house, so I started the driveway reclamation by parking a dumpster in it when no cars were behind the house. While I completed the renovations, I also poured some large concrete planters and placed them just beyond the dumpster. After that, I sledged out the section of the driveway on my side that they connected their slab to for good measure, and this effort has to be permitted by the city, so I did that and kept the stamped paperwork as well as the survey. I also had a security system installed to document the entire sequence of events. When they saw me knocking out the upper portion of the driveway, the neighbors finally came over. They told me I could not do that, so I pulled out my paperwork and continued. We had a nasty exchange, they threatened to sue, but when I mentioned my attorney, they just stormed back over to their house. Not the best start in the neighborhood, but at least the problem is solved for now. And the next one is titled, I'm afraid my neighbor abducts women. So I moved into this new place 8 months ago. Great location, price and space, it's the perfect spot for my boyfriend and I. I would love to live here a long time. However, we immediately noticed our neighbor is gone for long periods of time and drives this big van. He also has a Ring doorbell. When he is home, he blasts music incredibly loud at random times of the day, 8 AM, 10, 12, 5, but usually not at night. Does not bother us since we are usually up by the time / out and about. He has a few different people come and check on his place while he is gone, but we think nothing of it. One time though, we come home and his back door is open and you can see the inside. Virtually no furniture, but he does have kayaks and kayaking equipment. Kinda weird, but we don't think much of it either until about a month ago. We wake up at 3 AM to these really loud thuds. We wait and it stops, but my boyfriend said he thinks he heard fighting before it started. Chalk it up to a messy relationship and go back to sleep. Then at the same night at 5 AM we wake up to this incredibly loud shrill scream in a woman's voice. It was bone chilling. Soon after you hear a door open and close and a car peel out. I look outside and his van and car are still there. We call the cops and they come by but find nothing. Later that day, his van is gone for about a week. I thought maybe it was the case of a toxic girlfriend who threatened to scream if she didn't get her way, since we heard nothing after that. But then yesterday, midday, I hear a woman sobbing loudly and a man's muffled voice responding. At one point she says, "I just want to go home, please." And then his muffled voice again, some weird churning sound, and we never hear her again. Just incredibly loud music coming from his place. I look outside and the only cars outside are ours, his van and his car, and no sign of this woman's mode of transportation. I called the police and they came by and knocked, but no one answered. I don't know if they will follow up. Anyway, I woke up this morning and the van is gone. Could not really sleep last night. Let me know what you think. Update: I submitted a tip to my local FBI office. Thanks everyone. Update number 2. Since all of that happened, the neighbor came back the same day he left. I did report both incidents. He leaves every morning now and comes back at night. I have not heard any scary noises and he's had a lot more people over, laughing, and sounds like both men and women getting along. Never heard this before, to be honest. Also, I've never seen his van move and came back so regularly. Anyway, the only weird thing is that a few times now, when I've been home alone at night, it sounds like someone comes up the front door steps. The doorbell rings, but each time I'm confused as to whether it's mine or the neighbors. They rung it just now. My dog and I both heard the footsteps and came downstairs. I'm thinking it's probably nothing. There's always laughter/normal banter noises from below afterwards, so it's probably the neighbors. I have not seen police in the area since. That's it for the update, not much else has happened. Next update: things have been really normal since my last post. My neighbor has been staying here consistently. He goes to work most days and comes home in the afternoon, and I also met the girl whose car I thought was his. She seemed calm and at ease coming out of his place. Basically no screaming has happened. I met the girl who was probably the one who screamed, maybe a mental breakdown, and things have been seeming a lot more normal. It's been over a month, I think. The place still looks empty. Everything else has turned out a lot more normal. I cannot describe it more accurately than that, just no weirdness going on. And yeah, Ripestars, actually for this story I also tried to contact the author if there are any further updates, but unfortunately I could not reach the author anymore. However, the author after this update never posted once again about this story, so I guess it is more or less solved. I guess what at first looked like a case of a neighbor abducting women possibly simply turned out to be someone who maybe just has mental issues or something. Then again, I gotta say, if I would be OP, I would still be freaked out by this neighbor. Neighbor stole my service dog and broke into my apartment to steal my jewelry. For the past 5 years, I have lived in the middle of New York City with my dog Buddy. I have suffered from severe medical issues my entire life, but in some ways I have learned to live with my body. Because of the severity of my disease, which I don't really want to get into any further here, and the things that I have to deal with, about 5 years ago I decided to invest in a service dog, and it has been wonderful. Buddy, my service dog, has quite literally been my rock, and there are some days that I really don't know what I would do without him. Not only does he alert me in certain situations, like when my blood pressure is too low, but he is able to retrieve items for me and has been a huge help when it comes to emotional support. About 4 months ago though, Buddy was stolen from me by one of my neighbors, someone who I thought was my friend. Before Buddy was stolen from me, I was about to have a procedure that would leave me in the hospital for a week. Technically, I was allowed to have Buddy with me during these times, but I wanted to be fair to him and did not want to keep him cooped up in a hospital room with people coming in and out all hours of the day and night. Because of this, I decided it was best to keep him home and pay my neighbor to walk and feed him daily. We agreed on a pay of $25 a day, and all she had to do was feed him and take him for a 15 to 20 minute walk every day. Due to my own concerns about the streets of New York City, she was only supposed to walk Buddy on our block. I was so excited to finally see Buddy when I returned home from the hospital, better than I was expecting. However, I was still tired and had some mild pain and could not wait to just be cuddled up on my couch with my little buddy. He always made me feel better, and I could have really used his presence when I got out of the hospital. However, when I arrived at my home, I was shocked to see that Buddy was not running to the door to meet me. As a matter of fact, there was no trace of Buddy even in my house. I had looked around my apartment to see if he was hiding somewhere, but I was surprised to see that his dog bed and his dog food container and bowl was missing. I thought that my neighbor had him at her house for some reason, so I went to investigate. However, upon me knocking on the door, it seemed that I was being ignored. I saw her car in the driveway, so I knew that she was home. She was also a dog lover herself, as she already had 2 dogs. As much as I hated to think about it, I could not help but wonder if she stole Buddy. She always adored him, and the fact that his belongings were missing with him made me think that someone intentionally took him. The only person that had access to my apartment though was my neighbor, and even then she did not have a key. She had to be buzzed in by the front desk receptionist, so it is not like she could have just helped herself to my apartment whenever she pleased. Even though I had little evidence, I decided to call the police. I had checked the local animal shelters and missing pets page. Buddy was also microchipped, so it would be easier for me to locate him if he ran away and was turned in. I thought that the police could help me somehow, and although I explained the situation to them, they were not much of help. I explained that my neighbor was the only one with access to my apartment, and she was walking my dog daily while in the hospital. However, the police stated that while it was compelling information, it simply wasn't enough to press charges on her, and the most they could do was file a police report about the missing dog. This was of course extremely frustrating to me, as all I wanted was my dog back. I was even willing to drop the charges if she was willing to give me Buddy back. However, a few days after filing the police report, I discovered something that could help my case. Some of my precious diamond jewelry was missing, along with some other personal belongings, and all of Buddy's toys, leashes and service gear were missing as well. I thought that this must be some convincing evidence and decided to call the police back. Although it did not prove that she took my beloved Buddy, the police had launched an investigation into the missing jewelry. Shortly after that, they had begun working with the apartment complex to retrieve any video surveillance of my neighbor taking things or Buddy from my apartment. While they could not see her clearly taking Buddy, they had found suspicious footage of her entering my apartment after being buzzed in and leaving with a giant bag, but not leaving with Buddy. My neighbor didn't have permission to enter my apartment for any other reason than to walk the dog, so this was a step in the right direction in getting my Buddy back. Over the next course of the next 4 months, I had several interviews and meetings with the police and the property management. And although I never saw my neighbor's face during this process, which made it even more obvious she was the culprit, I was shocked when I got a call one day that Buddy had been dropped off at a nearby animal shelter by a strange lady. I was happy to have my Buddy back. I nearly made myself sick and anxious just thinking about where my fur baby could be and if he were safe and being taken care of. And even though I had Buddy back in my arms, all snuggled up and safe, the investigation was not over yet. Police were able to conduct a thorough investigation and found that somehow the neighbor was made aware that the police were actively trying to obtain a search warrant to her apartment. They would obviously find my dog Buddy there, so she snuck away to give the dog to her friend, who would then take it to the animal shelter in the pretense that she found Buddy running around on the streets. However, with the footage from our apartment complex and being able to find Buddy at the animal shelter, the girl's friend caved and let the police know everything. While she didn't know that my neighbor had stolen valuable items from my home, she confessed that she knew that she stole Buddy and had her all this time. This in turn led to my neighbor confessing to stealing Buddy, and she ended up receiving multiple charges due to her irresponsible actions. I ended up winning the case in court, and my neighbor was charged with grand larceny for stealing Buddy and my personal belongings, but she was also charged with a felony. Besides this, she also ended up having to pay a $550 fine. I honestly didn't care about the fine, I was just happy to have my Buddy back and that she was facing consequences for her actions. Due to this, I've been more careful with my dog and he is never out of my sight. I've been so tired of dealing with all this for the past 4 months, but I am over the moon that Buddy was returned to me safe and sound. And Ripe stars, honestly, stealing a service dog, or really any pet in general, is one of the lowest lows you can go to. It really makes me wonder that maybe the neighbor had some kind of mental issues, because I really also don't see the benefit behind stealing this dog. Anyway, if you have watched until here and enjoy my content, then I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and maybe post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support the channel. Thank you so much in advance for your amazing support, it is very much appreciated.